Julius Caesar. Over 2,000 years after his death, his name is still invoked when power is discussed. He lives in the very structure of leadership, embedded in the strategies of CEOs, politicians, and military commanders. His impact transcends time, not because he ruled Rome, but because he reshaped what leadership meant, transforming a crumbling republic into an empire ruled not just by swords, but by vision, loyalty, and psychological mastery. From humble beginnings in a politically endangered family, Caesar rose by manipulating every tool at his disposal: image, alliances, law, and spectacle. In today's world, where leaders compete for attention, trust, and influence, Caesar's tactics are more relevant than ever. Whether knowingly or not, modern leadership borrows from Caesar's playbook, the same one that bent the will of a republic and laid the foundation for autocracy cloaked in reform. In this extended deep dive from Leader Insight, we unravel not just the historical path of Caesar's rise and fall, but the living principles that continue to shape how power is gained, maintained, and sometimes lost. Because leadership is never just about doing, it's about appearing, persuading, and surviving. And Julius Caesar mastered them all. Caesar understood something that most of his peers overlooked. History isn't written by the victors. It's written by those who write first. From the earliest stages of his career, Caesar wasn't just acting, he was documenting his own myth, sculpting a narrative so compelling it would outlast even the most damning criticisms. Take the pirate episode. Kidnapped as a young man by Cilician pirates, Caesar didn't simply endure the humiliation, he used it. While held for ransom, he laughed in the faces of his captors, claimed they were charging too little, and promised he would return to kill them all once freed. And he did exactly that. It's a moment immortalized not just for its audacity, but because Caesar made sure the story traveled. This wasn't just bravado, it was narrative control. He planted the seeds of fear, admiration, and inevitability. Decades later, while commanding his armies in Gaul, Caesar sent back written reports to Rome detailing his victories. These commentaries on the Gallic War were not just military logs, they were political manifestos. Written in the third person, they painted Caesar as rational, just, decisive. He described his opponents as savage and irrational, casting himself as the guardian of Roman civilization. This was propaganda before the modern age, and it worked. The people of Rome didn't just know his name, they believed his legend. Today's leaders flood social media, deliver TED Talks, and publish thought leadership pieces. But Caesar pioneered real-time image curation. He understood the mechanics of trust and public fascination. A leader doesn't just do great things. A leader ensures the world sees it, feels it, and remembers it, exactly as they want to be remembered. Rome's political world was a den of rivals, conspiracies, and shifting alliances. And Caesar navigated it not as a rule follower, but as a game changer. He formed the first triumvirate with Crassus and Pompey, a secret agreement that bypassed the Senate's usual mechanisms and gave the three men collective control over Roman politics. It was an unprecedented move, one that reshaped how decisions were made and who wielded actual power. But Caesar didn't stop with handshakes. He made himself indispensable to the Roman populace. He passed popular land reforms, relieved debt, and hosted lavish public games. These weren't simply acts of kindness. They were bricks in a fortress of public loyalty. Caesar knew the Senate could defy him, but they couldn't easily defy the people. When Caesar returned from Gaul with his army and crossed the Rubicon, it wasn't just an act of rebellion. It was the climax of a long campaign to reorient the power structure, from the aristocracy to one man backed by the masses. Modern leadership often leans on this same dynamic. Charismatic politicians bypass institutions by appealing directly to voters. Influencers build empires by speaking directly to followers. CEOs who control company culture through personal engagement and media visibility wield power beyond their org charts. Caesar's genius was in decentralizing old hierarchies while centralizing himself. And he did it not through tyranny, but by seeming to deliver what the system wouldn't. His personal loyalty with the army, however, was his most dangerous and effective tool. Roman generals traditionally ceded control of their armies upon returning home. But Caesar's soldiers weren't just paid, they were emotionally bonded to him. They marched, bled, and celebrated under his command, not Rome's. That bond created an unbreakable force, a general with a private army and public devotion. It shattered the norms of the Republic, and it made Caesar unstoppable. Once Caesar was in power, he didn't declare himself emperor. He played a longer game, reforming everything from the calendar to the courts, while systematically removing threats. He implemented sweeping changes in law, redistributed wealth, and cut down on corruption. On the surface, he appeared to be repairing the Republic, but under the reforms, he centralized authority. The Senate expanded in size, but it was packed with his loyalists. The decisions still looked democratic, but the outcomes were always aligned with his will. It's a strategy repeated endlessly today. Leaders present transformations, new products, revised charters, innovation rollouts as solutions. But many serve to strengthen the core command structure. Caesar's playbook was about optics, provide visible progress while quietly locking in permanence. But Caesar's most fatal miscalculation was how far he pushed his visibility. Accepting the title dictator for life, donning royal robes, and sitting in a golden throne didn't just offend traditionalists, it terrified them. Roman society, steeped in anti-monarchy history, recoiled at any whiff of kingship. And despite Caesar's populist reforms, the elites saw only one thing: a man replacing the Republic with himself. The conspirators, Brutus, Cassius, and others, justified their act as salvation. On the Ides of March 44 BCE, they assassinated Caesar not because he failed to lead, but because he succeeded in leading too completely. He had taken the Republic, twisted it into an extension of himself, and dared to make it eternal. This is the tragic lesson many powerful leaders forget. Influence, if not diffused or shielded, becomes a target. The more visible, personal, and centralized the power, the more vulnerable it becomes. And Caesar, for all his mastery, left himself too exposed. The irony of Caesar's story is that his murder did not stop what he had set in motion. Within years, civil war engulfed Rome. His heir, Octavian, soon Augustus, avenged him, destroyed the Senate's authority, and declared himself emperor. The Republic was over, and the empire had begun. Caesar's name became not just a memory, but a title. Caesar was adopted by emperors for centuries. Even modern titles like Kaiser and the Tsar trace their roots to his name. He achieved a level of symbolic immortality few humans ever reach. But that wasn't an accident. Caesar designed it. His architectural changes to Rome, his carefully written histories, his bloodline succession, even his calendar reform, these were structures meant to outlive him. Leaders today build legacies through companies, nations, foundations, and brands. But Caesar embedded himself into time itself. July is named after him. The calendar you use every day is part of his reform. That's not just memory, that's presence. Modern founders like Elon Musk or Steve Jobs understood legacy not as an outcome, but as a design. They crafted identity into everything they touched. Just as Tesla and Apple reflect their creators, the Roman Empire reflected Caesar long after he was gone. That is the final page of the power playbook. Make your influence systemic. Julius Caesar may have died in a Senate chamber over 2,000 years ago, but his vision for power never left us. In corporate boardrooms, campaign rallies, war rooms, and tech startups, his tactics are replayed. Build loyalty through storytelling. Bypass outdated systems with bold alliances. Reform visibly while centralizing quietly, and shape perception with mythic consistency. He proved that leadership isn't about balance sheets or ballots. It's about emotion, narrative, and decisive momentum. That a leader is not just someone who governs, but someone who becomes the gravity center of history. So, as you watch the world's next generation of leaders rise and fall, ask yourself, are they creating systems or stories? Are they inviting democracy or engineering dependence? Are they ruling or performing? Thank you for watching Leader Insight. Subscribe for more cinematic explorations of history's most strategic minds. And tell us in the comments, was Caesar a visionary leader or the world's first corporate tyrant? The playbook is ancient, but its chapters are still being written. We'll see you in the next one.